73 swastikas. That is what greeted parents and children in a Brooklyn playground this week.
Yeah.
And while the city was scrubbing hate symbols off park benches, a federal court was scrubbing a lower court order that had set a controversial activist free.
It has been a brutal week for New York. But if you look closely, there's a singular theme emerging here.
Which is?
The rules of engagement, whether on the street or in the courtroom, they're being rewritten right in front of us.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It is Saturday, January 24th, 2026. If you are listening to this, you survived the week, and frankly, it was a heavy one.
What?
We have a massive stack of legal filings, police reports, and court opinions to get through today. Our mission is to connect two stories that look separate on the surface: anti-Semitic vandalism in Gravesend and a deportation battle in the Third Circuit Court of Appeals.
But they aren't separate at all.
Huh.
They are both about the reassertion of order. We are witnessing a collision between, local chaos and federal enforcement.
The machinery of the law, as you put it.
Yeah.
Exactly, kicking into high gear. And honestly, it's not just about who gets arrested or who gets deported. This is a deep dive into jurisdiction. Who actually has the power to say, you don't belong here?
That is the question of the hour.
Yeah.
Let's start with the visceral part. The news hook that has everyone in the city on edge. We have to talk about Gravesend Park.
We do.
This is a neighborhood with a deep Jewish history. It is supposed to be a sanctuary, but Tuesday morning, it looked like a crime scene.
It was a crime scene, and the scale of it is what matters here. We aren't talking about one stray tag or some kid with a marker.
No.
Police found 16 swastikas on Tuesday. Then, almost as if to taunt cleanup crews, they found 57 more on Wednesday.
73.
73 distinct hate symbols, plus the name Adolf Hitler, spray-painted across the playground equipment.
It feels aggressive. It's so deliberate. You don't accidentally spray paint 73 swastikas. That takes time. That takes real intent.
No, you don't. And the police treated it that way. The NYPD moved incredibly fast on this.
They did. Oh, yeah. They have two 15-year-old boys in custody now. The charges are aggravated harassment and criminal mischief, both tagged as hate crimes. And I think that speed is important to note.
Why?
Because in a city where people often complain that crimes go unanswered, the NYPD closed the loop on this one immediately.
I was reading the reaction from the city council speaker, Julie Menin. She went straight to the park. She used words like, deplorable and unconscionable.
Of course.
But beyond the condemnation, is this actually changing anything on the ground? Because we hear deplorables a lot.
Well, that is a fair skepticism, but it is ratcheting up the pressure for tangible security. You have candidates like Jack Schlossberg seizing on this.
Right.
He's looking at these photos of a defaced playground and saying, this is why we need to double the funding for security grants. His argument is that you cannot have a functioning city if people are afraid to walk into a synagogue or send their kids to a slide.
It's that broken windows theory, right? If you let the playground go, the neighborhood goes.
Precisely. It is about public confidence. If the state cannot protect a playground from being covered in symbols of genocide, what can it protect?
And the tension is just bleeding into everything.
It really is. Did you see the news about Guy Hochman? He's that Israeli comedian.
I did. His show in the city got canceled.
Right, amid protests. So you have this atmosphere where cultural events are shutting down, public parks are being vandalized, and the local police are scrambling to put a lid on it.
And this is the big pivot, while the NYPD is playing whack-a-mole with local vandals.
The federal government is playing a much, much higher stakes game regarding who is even allowed to be in the city in the first place.
This is where we need to switch gears from the playground to the federal docket. Because while the city deals with 15-year-olds, the Trump administration is focused on Mahmoud Khalil. And this story is way more complicated than just a headline.
Mahmoud Khalil. This is a name that has become a lightning rod. To understand this, you have to look at his file. He is a Palestinian refugee born in Syria, but he holds Algerian citizenship. He came here, got a green card, and was a grad student at Columbia University.
And he wasn't just attending class. He was a lead negotiator for the protests there. He was very visible.
He was front and center. But here's the thing listeners need to grasp. The government's case against him isn't about his protest slogans.
That's a key distinction.
It's the most important one. This is where the line between free speech and visa fraud gets really, really clear. The Department of Homeland Security and the State Department looked at his paperwork and found what they claim are massive holes.
What kind of holes? Because his supporters are screaming that this is political persecution. They say he's being targeted for his views.
The government is pointing to specific omissions. They alleged that when Khalil applied for his green card, he failed to disclose his work with UNRWA, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency.
Okay.
And he also allegedly left out work he did with the British Embassy in Beirut.
Okay, let me just play devil's advocate here for a second. Why does that matter? I mean, is leaving a job off a resume a deportation offense?
When it's a federal immigration document signed under penalty of perjury, yes, it absolutely is. The integrity of the entire immigration system relies on honesty.
So the argument is, if you lie to get in.
The government argues that your entry was invalid from the start. But it goes deeper than just the paperwork. Secretary of State Marco Rubio made a formal determination. He stated that Khalil's presence in the United States has serious adverse foreign policy consequences.
That is a heavy label, adverse foreign policy consequences.
Right.
That basically frames him as a liability to the state itself.
It does. And this is a power the executive branch has. They get to decide foreign policy, not the courts.
And the rhetoric from DHS backs that up completely.
Oh, absolutely. I want to highlight a quote from Tricia McLaughlin, the DHS spokesperson. She didn't use legal jargon. She spoke very plainly to every green card holder in the country. She said, "You are a guest in this country. Act like it."
Act like it. Wow. That really strips away the ambiguity. It sounds like a parent talking to a teenager who is about to get grounded.
It encapsulates the entire philosophy of this administration. The argument is that being in the U.S. as a foreign national, even with the green card, is a privilege, not a right.
It comes with terms and conditions.
Exactly. If you lie on your forms or if you become a foreign policy headache, the government is saying, we are revoking your invitation.
And they aren't just revoking it on paper, they intend to physically remove him. McLaughlin confirmed the plan is to send him to Algeria.
Correct. Now, to be fair to the other side, there were unsealed internal memos. And some State Department officials admitted amongst themselves that using this specific foreign policy ground was legally shady, especially when First Amendment activities are involved.
And there was a reach?
They knew it was novel. They knew they were pushing the envelope, but they proceeded anyway. The priority is enforcement capability. They are testing the limits of how easily they can remove someone they deem a risk.
And you have someone like Mayor Zohran Mamdani, who is effectively the face of the opposition here, calling Khalil a New Yorker and demanding his release. But Mayor Mamdani doesn't run federal immigration enforcement.
And that is the wall Mamdani is hitting. The federal government is basically saying, local politics don't apply here. This is federal law.
Which brings us to the actual deep dive portion of this discussion. Because Khalil was released by a judge, a district court judge in New Jersey let him out.
He was.
But that just got overturned in a massive way.
It did. And the tool the appeals court used to overturn it is something we need to really unpack. It's called the zipper clause.
The zipper clause. It sounds like a fashion accessory, or maybe a bad pun. But in the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, this is a weapon.
It is a very powerful mechanism in the Immigration and Nationality Act, specifically Section 1252b9. If you are a lawyer, that number gives you nightmares. If you are the government, it is your best friend.
Okay, explain it to me like I'm in 8th grade. What does a zipper clause actually do in a courtroom?
Think of a literal zipper on a jacket. You have two sides, the teeth, that are wide apart at the bottom, but as you pull the slider up, it forces those two sides into a single locked track.
Okay.
The zipper clause does that with lawsuits. It forces all legal challenges regarding deportation into one single review process.
So you can't have cases popping up in different courts at the same time.
Exactly. And that is what happened here. Khalil's team went to a district court judge to challenge his detention while the deportation case was still moving through the immigration courts.
They tried to open a second track.
They wanted immediate relief. And the district judge agreed with them initially.
Right.
But the Third Circuit, this is the appeals court, sitting above that district judge, came down hard. Judges Hardiman and Bibas wrote the majority opinion. They ruled that the district judge lacked subject matter jurisdiction.
Subject matter jurisdiction. That's a fancy way of saying you aren't allowed to even hear this conversation.
Yes. The court said, essentially, you are the wrong court at the wrong time. Under the zipper clause, you have to wait. You go through the immigration judge. Then, if you lose, you go to the Board of Immigration Appeals.
And only then.
Only after you have a final order of removal can you go to the federal court.
So you can't stop the machinery while it's running. You have to wait until it spits you out at the end.
That is the perfect analogy.
Yeah.
The court's logic is entirely about order and efficiency. They use the phrase piecemeal litigation.
Piecemeal, like taking it apart piece by piece.
Exactly. If every person facing deportation could run to a random district judge and pause the process to argue about their rights, the system would collapse. It would clog the courts. It would take years to deport anyone.
So the majority opinion says Congress designed this system to be streamlined. You don't get to interrupt it.
You don't.
But wait, there was a dissent, right? Judge Freeman didn't sign on to this.
No, Judge Freeman wrote a strong dissent. The argument there was about timing. Freeman called these now or never claims.
Now or never.
If your argument is the government is suppressing my free speech by deporting me, and you have to wait until you are about to be deported to make that claim,
Right.
well, the speech has already been suppressed. You've already been silenced.
The damage is done.
Right. Freeman argued that the Zipper Clause shouldn't be a suicide pact for constitutional rights. But the majority didn't buy it. They stuck to the text. I was highlighting this line in the opinion. Judicial review shall be available only in judicial review of a final order.
That seems incredibly rigid.
It is meant to be.
Yeah.
It's a solid wall. The court is saying that efficiency and order in the immigration system outweigh the immediate ability to challenge detention in a lower court. They are effectively saying, we hear your complaint, but you have to stand in line like everyone else.
So where does this leave Khalil? The appeals court reversed the decision that freed him. Is he back in custody?
Legally, the shield is gone. The barrier to rearresting him has been removed. An immigration judge in Louisiana has already ordered him deported to Syria or Algeria.
So the order exists. It's on the books.
The order exists. Khalil's team is appealing that order within the immigration system, but DHS has made their stance clear. They intend to enforce the law.
And what's Khalil saying?
He released a video recently. He's still fighting the narrative war. He called the charges manufactured hysteria. He seems pretty defiant.
But defiance doesn't stop a court order.
No, it doesn't. And the reality on the ground has shifted beneath his feet. The Third Circuit ruling reinforces the power of the federal process over any local judicial intervention. It's not just about him anymore, it's about the precedent.
It really highlights this clash we are seeing across the board. You have Mayor Mamdani in New York saying Khalil must remain free and is a New Yorker.
Right.
And then you have the federal courts and the White House using the full weight of the Immigration and Nationality Act to say, no, he is a foreign national who violated the terms of his visa.
It is a tug-of-war where one side has a tank. In the legal realm, the rope is being pulled very hard toward the federal side. The courts are confirming that immigration enforcement is a plenary power. It belongs to the feds. And the procedures set by Congress have to be respected.
So you can't just find a sympathetic local judge to let you out the back door.
That's what the Third Circuit just said, loud and clear.
It seems like the theme of the week is strict enforcement. Whether it's the NYPD arresting 15-year-olds for hate crimes in Gravesend to restore order to a park, or the federal appeals court shutting down loopholes for activists to restore order to the immigration system.
It comes down to the rule of law. That is the connecting thread. The system is asserting control. It is saying that rules matter. And more importantly, it's saying that the process matters.
Yeah.
You can't shortcut the process just because you have political support or a loud megaphone.
And for you listening, why does this specific legal ruling matter to you? I mean, most people aren't facing deportation.
Because the Zipper Clause ruling isn't just about Mahmoud Khalil. It is a precedent. It sends a message to every immigration lawyer and every activist in the Third Circuit. It says the path to challenging the government has become much narrower. It's a funnel, and you have to go through it.
It feels like the government is closing the exits.
That is a great way to put it. They're closing the exits and forcing everyone to walk down the main hallway. And at the end of that hallway is a finalized order.
It's a fascinating time to be watching the courts. We saw 73 hate symbols scrubbed from a playground, and we saw a federal court scrub a lower court's order to release a detainee.
Order is being restored, one way or another.
So here's a final thought for you to chew on as you go about your weekend. If the Zipper Clause effectively stops activists from challenging their detention until after a final deportation order is signed, how many other guests in this country are about to find out just how strict the House rules have become?
That is the big question.
That gives you something to think about. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.